What the Flux is brought to you by DeLoreanRental.com. If you're looking to rent a DeLorean time machine, DeLorean Rental has you covered. They have time machines all across the United States, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and adding more cars daily. Check out all of their packages to see what would best fit your event at DeLoreanRental.com or call 708-292-0236.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
All your questions will be answered. Roll tape.
Live from the former Institute of Future Technology in Orlando, Florida, you're listening to What the Flux with your host, Anthony Furtado, Brooke Bromery, Caitlin Larkin, and Eugene Schnee.
Welcome back to What the Flux. Guys, You are about to have a hell of an episode. Let me tell Caitlin.
Yeah.
Who did we just speak with?
Guys, we actually just got off the phone with Jeffrey Weissman, who, of course...
Who?
Jeffrey Weissman.
Who?
Turn up your hearing aids,
Oh,
sir.
my bad.
We just got off the phone with Jeffrey Weissman, of course, who played George McFly in Back to the Futures 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh man, you guys are in for a treat
First of all,
today.
I'm speechless through the whole thing, just listening to the stories that you guys are about to hear and hearing them from, Jeff, himself, which was absolutely insane. And again, Jeff, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us. It was an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait for the people to hear this. This was a fun one. This is my favorite episode so far, yeah.
It was fun hearing all the stories and just hearing from somebody who's been the other side of the project, and especially working not just the stories from his Back to the Future days, but also stories from his older projects and some of the projects also that he's involved right now too, which is he's doing really good things.
It's definitely a tell-all, but before we get to that, please stick around for it. But Caitlin, you got some news for us, right?
Sure do.
Yeah, because I want to apologize to all of our fans who were looking forward to my do. Well, guess what? It's being retired.
Yeah, we got
because now we are going, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving up. Now we actually have a full whole theme song for the news.
So let's give the news a good old countdown. We have Caitlin with Back to the Future news in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Dr. Stay. This is tomorrow's newspaper.
Could I go to the library and look myself up in the old newspaper archive?
All right, well, thank you guys. And you know what? We really need to thank our buddy Chris for making that news music bed for us.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, who wrote us last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, thank you.
He works in radio, and it's funny because, I do too. And so he was like, I would love to make something for you guys. And I'm like, well, I have ideas of, what I want. But now that I was laid off, I couldn't go to the studio and make it. So he was kind enough to do that for us. So Chris, thank you so much.
Somebody else who was so just sick of hearing Eugene shit.
It's like, you need something else.
I will do it for you.
I will do it for you. I'm done listening to this crap. Well, Chris, we wanna award Chris our first and honorary badge of you are the official What the Flux best friend.
Whoa.
That's a good one, folks. A lot of people, we were between...
Hey, who out there wants to beat him?
That's right. Now, this time, the competition was really tight, folks. It was between the Pope, and Chris, and we're like, I don't know.
We had a late submission from Will Smith, too.
Will Smith, yeah, but you know what? Chris beat them all, man. So good job, Chris. You beat the Pope, and you beat Will Smith.
That's some serious stuff right there.
I know. So, Chris, we have an award badge for you. And now, obviously, because...
Why are you promising him stuff? We don't have anything.
Don't worry. I'm going to draw it. We're going to color it and draw it for you. It is one of a kind. This thing, folks, it's insane. We had it one time in eBay, and it went a whole $2. So, Chris, we're going to
Where is my share of that $2, by the way?
Because you don't have one. You're not Chris. You're laid off.
I'm going to go cry now.
Chris, you are the new What the Flux best friend. So, a round of applause, please.
What else we got, Caitlin?
We've got some other stuff, too. It takes a village, as they say, to get this show up and running. And I just want to wish a very big congratulations to our audio mixer, Eric. had a baby girl this week.
Yay!
And I'm not gonna, give out her name or anything because, privacy and stuff like that.
Let's just call her alias the baby.
But the middle name for this child is Lorraine. And I was just like, oh my God, like Back to the Future, you did Back to the Future because of us? And he was like, no.
I didn't name.
But Eric, as you're mastering and mixing this episode, a big congratulations to you and your wife and your eldest daughter on the new addition to your family.
A round of applause for Eric. Yay!
Then as we get back to some Back to the Future stuff, last week we were talking about the silver coin that came out, but of course they got to keep reeling us in and keep us buying stuff. There's now a gold coin that you can get for the 35th anniversary, and it's really cool because it's the image of the clock tower at 10:04 p.m. on the gold coin.
That's awesome.
And that's epic, and I want it, and apparently there are only like 1,000 made, and it's embossed on both sides, and I want it. But I'm poor and I can't get it. Also, Leah Thompson's episode of The Goldbergs aired, where she also directed and starred in it. Wow. And she did a fantastic job as the Formica Queen. So, yes, Leah Thompson, you are our queen. We love you, and you did fantastic.
Oh, hail Leah Thompson.
That's my new mantra.
I
love it.
That's my tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why she's got to come do the show.
She does need to come do the show.
I want to show her like the tattoo. Oh, hail Leah Thompson.
If she does this show, you have to get that tattoo now. You understand that?
I'll do it.
You heard that.
I'll do it.
Leah Thompson, if you come here and allow us to interview you, he will get that tattooed.
Oh, man.
In Sharpie?
So this isn't really news, but I thought that I would share this here because, it's Back to the Future stuff. So sitting at home, doing nothing during quarantine, I've been just going on eBay and looking at things that I wish I could buy.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And I stumbled across a lot of 4 of the OG Back to the Future animated series toys that came out in the McDonald's Happy Meals back in 91. Mm-hmm. Guys, I bought those for like $7 and it's going to be coming this week.
Worth it.
It is so worth it. I'm so excited to get them. They're not like mint in the packages or anything. They're, out. But I'm just really happy to add them to my Back to the Future collection. They're cool as hell.
They were cool. They were really cool. I remember you had to buy the Happy Meal thing, and that's how you got them, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it was nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Did it include fries?
Yeah, fries from 1991.
Hey, keep it close.
According to Super Size Me, they're probably still good.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Yeah. And before we get into our interview with Jeffrey Weissman, guys, once again, we got another fan letter.
I've got something for you. A letter.
We got a fan letter?
We got our 3rd fan letter.
Oh my God, we got 3 fans out there.
This is incredible.
This is awesome.
I can't believe that we've been averaging 1 a week, and please keep them coming. We love to hear your stories, and we'd love to share them. This week's letter comes from our fan, Don.
Don? Where's Don from?
Don didn't say where he's from.
Okay.
Chicago, Illinois.
But he sent us some.
It's Don. It's Don from Planet Earth. Let's go with it.
Yeah, Don from Planet Earth.
All
I
right.
like that.
That's assumptive.
Yeah. So here, let me read Don's letter for you.
Please.
It says, "My name is Don. I was an immediate fan of the podcast and have been a 30-year fan of the franchise. My story isn't too exciting, but it's a big part of who I am today. I was born in 1983, but I didn't see Back to the Future until 1989, as I believe it was the first time it was available on VHS. Anyway, my aunt and uncle always had the newest stuff, so whenever I visited, I was able to see movies that I may never have otherwise. One afternoon, my uncle popped in Back to the Future, and I sat down and watched it with him. Even as a 6-year-old, I was absolutely enthralled and knew it was something special. Fast forward to early 91, we finally have a VCR. And I would rent movies from the local grocery store on the weekends with my mom and have marathons. One weekend, all 3 movies were available, and because I hadn't seen part 2 or 3 yet, we rented them. We spent that entire Saturday watching Back to the Future. That sealed the deal for me. The summer of that year, I was lucky enough to be able to visit Universal Studios Florida, as it was called at the time. It still is, sort of, and ride Back to the Future the ride. I remember my neck hurting, but the rest of me was overjoyed. The gift store was my favorite thing to roam around in, and I would pretend that I could afford whatever I saw, even though I was only 8 years old. Then the animated series came out, and the Happy Meal toys, and Huey Lewis in the News on cassette and CD. As I got older, my love for the franchise only got stronger, and back in the late 90s and early 2000s, being into something so heavily didn't exactly garner the type of love that it does today. So the very thing that brought others to shame and ridicule me also brought me to comfort and support during my being bullied throughout my school career. I visited Universal many more times over the last 20 years or so, and always made sure the first and last thing I did was ride the ride. And I was finally able to afford the merchandise. As I became a responsible adult, the fandom community began to grow, and I started connecting with fans from all over the world. The internet started to appreciate the movies that meant so much to me. And being a responsible adult, I did the only appropriate thing. Started collecting Back to the Future memorabilia, got a couple of tattoos, and finally lived my fandom without shame. I've attached pictures, so you're more than welcome to share on social media, and we will. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
And he also sent us pictures of his tattoos, which are epic. Mm-hmm. And he also sent us a picture of an original Back to the Future, the ride shirt. He says he got it in 98. And thanks for the podcast, and thank you for reading. Your friend in time, Don.
Thank you, Don. That's awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much, Don. And we're going to post those great pictures that you sent us.
I like that. He put your friend in time.
Dude, have you not been listening to the other letters? They all do it.
I know that, but I like that. I just saying I like that. That's really cool. It's very epic. Very. It's just very like. It just sounds awesome.
All right. Well, let's quit stalling. Everyone's here for one thing, and that's this incredible interview that we have coming up, guys. So please sit down, take a listen, and get ready to just be enthralled in the stories that we were all. Mr. Jeffrey Weissman.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, guess what? Today's the day, because today we have an amazing guest. Who do we have?
The one.
The only.
The only.
The upside down man. The best Charlie. Nah, we don't want him. We want Mr. Jeffrey Weissman. How you doing, sir?
Hello. Hey, you. Get your damn hands off her.
That's it. I'm done. Game over. I can die happy.
This concludes our interview.
Well, folks, that's it. We thank you so much for your time, Mr. Weissman. I mean, we're here. Obviously, we're here with Miss Caitlin. We're here with Mr. Tony in the house. Brooke, wherever you are, we love you. We are missing you. And if anyone, yay, Brooke!
Yay, Brooke.
Yeah. If anybody can find Brooke on the, please return her.
But it is such a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to do this with us. How are you holding up? Is quarantine treating you okay?
Oh, I got nothing but time.
So do we.
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep myself busy. I've got Quarantined Con coming up, trying to figure out how to stream, my slideshow while staying on the screen at the same time, and of course my computer needs to be upgraded for that. I've been doing some table reads for some features and TV pilots and teaching online, so I'm staying fairly occupied, but the nerves are shot. I don't know if you know this about actors. Most actors are sensitives. They really are like sponges that pick up emotions and pretty connected to the vibes of the world and such. And I've kind of been feeling this shit approaching for several months now. I think it started back in November or so, and I was making excuses. What the hell is coming? And I was getting kind of morbid vibe and so on and so forth. And sure enough, this whole thing showed up. So it's been something that I've had all my life. I've been able to feel earthquakes often before they hit, and during a trip when I was doing a show on a cruise ship in the South China Sea, in the middle of a big storm, I could feel the lightning just before it would strike. I would, in fact, my wife is a witness to this. I would point to where the lightning was just about to strike and it would happen. I had a really great record with that.
Wow.
That's killer. Eugene, I found your new psychic.
I know.
You said you were looking for one.
I need a psychic. I need a psychic, and I think his name is Jeffrey Weissman.
Hey, I've been a sidekick to a lot of different great guys. That was a bad pun.
Hey, the fact that you included me in the great guys, that makes me great. You're cool in my book, man.
Hey, I've got a grandfather who's great. My grandfather, yeah, it's all right. Anyway.
Hey.
Hello.
So I actually have to start off from the this is a story that I told Caitlin and Tony today. I actually owe you a big thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just didn't thought that it would happen. Well, let me go back to the story. A couple of years back, I remember I was in a convention with a friend of mine, and he was telling me about we were talking about Back to the Future, blah blah blah, and he was like, yeah, because Crispin Glover, he was and then Back to the Future 2 and 3. I'm like, no, he wasn't. That was Jeffrey Weissman. And he's like, no, that was Crispin Glover. I'm like, no, that's Jeffrey Weissman. Like, I know this. Like, there's a lot of things in life that I may not know, and I'm not sure. But this one, I am ready to bet my right arm that it is. And he's like, no, it's not. And like, we literally got into a heated argument to the point where I just told him, you know what? If you're so sure of your answer, I bet you $50 that that's Jeffrey Weissman. Woo-hoo! Exactly. So guess who got $50 out of that deal?
Cut me off a piece of that.
Hey man, after you just said that line, I should give you at least.
Yeah, we should give you something.
And funny enough, I called him yesterday when Caitlin told us the great news that you were going to do the show. And I called him like, hey, guess who I'm going to talk tomorrow? Guess who I'm going to talk to tomorrow? And he goes, who? Mr. $50?
And he got pissed, no doubt.
Oh, yes. And when he hears this show, Omar, yes, this message is going straight to you. Me and Jeffrey are still enjoying your $50.
Yeah, you should have told him it was Crispin.
That too.
I keep getting Crispin's fan mail.
Oh man.
Touche, sir. Touche. So
Crispin's fans hate me with passion. It's so odd, because I was a fan of Crispin before he made the first film. We had done a film together at the American Film Institute with Dan O'Herlihy, and got his number, stayed in touch. And when the first Back to the Future movie came out, I was like, I know that guy. My God, he's doing great. And he really was fantastic in the first film. And I was so proud of him that I knew him. I called him and left him a message and shit. And then when I got the call to come in as his photo double, I called him and left him a message saying, Crispin, you remember me? Say a good word for me. I need this work. And he didn't call me back until he was ready to sue after the third film came out, because when during the process of my auditions and makeup and the effects fittings for the prosthetic makeups and the body cast for spinning, which was cut from the film, I heard from first my makeup artist, and then really slowly came to realize and didn't have the final realization until I was on set that Crispin wasn't coming back, which blew my mind. I was like, how's that possible? You can't do this without him. But I figured he had, because at the time he had come off his great work in River's Edge and the Doors movie, and I don't know if Dead Man had come out yet, but he was riding kind of high, and I figured he had another film that he couldn't get out of. So he just, they worked it out so they could make me up to look like him to fill in the gaps. Little did I know they didn't have his permission.
Oh, wow.
So
Right.
it was really icky. I was in the middle of like these warring factions, as it turned out. I had Bob Gale on one hand telling me horror stories about Crispin, and then when Crispin, it was time to sue, he kind of gave me all these sad stories of how they abused him. It was really ugly. Bottom line is that both sides were really just, if they could have only gotten along. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of all this crap. But what the payoff for me, of course, is being a part of one of the top 10 trilogies of all time, And
Sure.
also
Number one in our book.
Number one in our book, sir.
and also the fan base. I mean, you guys, it's just the payment for me, because I certainly didn't get nearly the money that anyone else was getting. But the payment really has been the appreciation of the fans. And though I have to say, there's these adamant Trumpsters. Oh, I mean, Crispinsters that will not. I get these messages like, Crispin says you're a bad actor, or you're a scab, you are fucked. And I'm like, you know what? I did my job that I was hired for. You guys, we kept the movies alive, and a lot of people, like you say, I'd say a good 35-40% of the folk out there still don't realize that I came in and took over the role.
It's really unfortunate that, and as Back to the Future fans, we see that and an aspect, like, you don't get the credit that you do deserve, because you did an excellent job as George McFly, especially the fact that, again, we have to remind our fans that you were how many hours were you upside down?
Lots.
I mean, we only see little sections of the inside the McFly's house that you were in that, but people forget the fact that you were doing that scene for how many hours? I believe it was for 2 weeks. The house smelling like pizza, which probably made you guys sick of pizza.
There's a lot of really, really great stories. My I guess complaint was that because I came in, they obviously waited till the 11th hour to find out that Crispin wasn't going to work out his contract, or they weren't going to offer him the $1 million that he wanted. Oof. And I think he wanted script approval too. They weren't going to give it to him, but they waited till the last possible second. We're going to go with our second choice now, I'm sure they told his agent. And I didn't have the luxury of the rehearsals, table reads, anything that, say, Leah and Michael and the rest of the cast had. So when I came in, they were rewriting daily, and they were cutting a lot of stuff that was originally meant for Crispin. I don't know if you knew in part 3 that Seamus was meant for Crispin.
That's true.
Yeah.
Seamus McFly. But I had, I got my copy out of my storage of Paradox. The 2 and 3 were both the same script under the name Paradox. And there were a lot of things in there that I never got to do because they were either rewritten or, cut. Although Zemeckis was somewhat flexible on set. Example, we improvised a thing where, if you remember Fruit Please, when the fruit conveyance came down from the ceiling, and Lorraine says to Marlene, give your granddad a piece of fruit. And I get a banana and try to eat it upside down, but the peel kept slapping me in the face. And it was a very funny comedy bit that unfortunately, was cut. Though I have a still from it, which is kind of rare. I'll have to pop one in the mail to you guys.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
I'd love to see it, yeah. And plus, you have to endure all that.
When we started on the shoot, we went to recreate the Enchantment Under the Sea dance first, and the fighting with Biff and kissing Lorraine on the dance floor and all that good stuff. And that was when I was in the young George, the 17-year-old George, 1955 makeup, and the responses it was odd, because immediately, Michael saw me and was like, "Oh, Crispin ain't gonna like this," and and Leah referred to me as Crispin. It was weird, and I was like, "This is odd." So I kind of retreated, hung out with Billy Zane, and just stayed and listened to his music.
That's a cool dude to hang out with, though.
No, he isn't. You just saw what he did at the Titanic?
You still mad?
I'm still mad at him because of the Titanic, man. No.
Get over it.
No. See, Jeffrey, look what happened. Now we lost all of Crispin's fans, and we lost all of Billy Zane's fans. Wow.
You gotta. I heard a little bit of one of your episodes before doing this, and I gotta remind you of Wesley Mann's name. Wesley Mann is the wonderful actor who's, I think he took his wallet.
Yeah, that's him. Thank you so much for that.
So then Do you remember working with Eugene's friend Janet, who we interviewed?
I do. Oh yes, of course I do.
Exactly right.
Yeah, she was there.
That was your friend that you worked at Universal with?
Disney with.
At Disney. Oh, very good. Yeah, I did characters for Disney when they owned the Queen Mary, and then I did characters at Universal for 15 years.
Wow.
If you went to Universal in Hollywood, I was their original Stan Laurel, and then started playing Charlie Chaplin, and then Groucho Marx, among other characters. In fact, I did the groundbreaking with other characters in the execs for Universal Florida back in
very cool.
88.
I've actually seen videos of you as Charlie Chaplin, and you are unbelievable. Like, I actually showed one to Caitlin. It's an old video from way back in the day, and it's amazing how accurate not only did you look, but how you act, like your mannerism and everything. It's just exactly like Charlie Chaplin.
Thank you. I worked hard. I didn't remember too much about Laurel and Hardy and Charlie from growing up. I knew I enjoyed their movies, but I didn't have the specifics or the know-how to really pull them off. Luckily, because I went in for the Stan Laurel role, the actor who was playing Oliver Hardy knew my work from a production of Romeo and Juliet that I had played Mercutio in, and he said, "This guy's got talent. I'll train him." And within a few weeks, I was doing a passable Stan Laurel, and I learned, my God, what a genius he was, and then of course the genius of Charlie, and then the genius of Groucho, and put those characters together with great care. And that's, I think, one of the reasons they really liked the fact that I could do imitations to bring the Crispin George back to life when they didn't have him. So when I got cast, the Bobs gave me his screen tests, and I studied those, and I really got into the physical. He has wonderful physicalization with his weight going forward and his gestures and the thing with his hair and the placement of his voice. So I studied that stuff, and then of course we spent a lot of time on set trying to recreate as accurately as possible. Fighting with Tom, fighting with Biff, and recreating the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and all that, as you guys know from your friend's interview.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
Yes.
I mean, we all obviously we're all big fans of the franchise and everything. And curious question for you: obviously, with everything that happened, are you still in good relations with the Bobs or any of the cast?
Zemeckis hasn't really talked to me much. What happened on set was, because my agents at the time really didn't negotiate well for me, I went to Zemeckis while we were shooting, and I said, "Listen, I co-starred with Clint Eastwood in Pale Rider, and I co-starred with Lithgow in Twilight Zone movie, George Miller's episode.
Yes.
Hell yes.
And if I take anything less than a shared title card, it'd be a step back for me in my career, and I really don't want to do that because my agents didn't negotiate anything besides producer's discretion, which would mean a buried credit at the end of the film. And Zemeckis thought about it, and he said, "Well, I won't give you a solo card, but I'll give you a shared card." And a few minutes later, he had told Neil Canton and Bob Gale, and they came running over to me, yelling at me, "How you can't talk to the director about the credit?" I said, "I'm sorry, it would be a step back in my career for me to take anything less." And they were pissed. And I have a feeling they may have tried to renege on it, but I tried to, do some publicity with, having the credit at the time. And I found a publicist who said, "Well, do you have it in your contract that you got this title card?" And I said, "No, I have a verbal with Bob Zemeckis." And she said, "Well, I want to see it in writing." So I wrote a letter to Zemeckis's office reiterating and asked him just to initial it and send it back so I could show this gal. And the next time I ran into Bob Z was on while he was shooting Death Becomes Her. And it was great to see Dean Cundy again on that. He was the cinematographer on that as well. And watch Meryl Streep shoot for a while. And then Bob Z and I had a little chat about, I was getting a negative vibe from him. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, what's the whole thing with the letter?" And I said, "Well," and I explained the publicist thing. And he goes, "Well, that just, and so it was apparent to me that he was under pressure from the producers and maybe even wanted to keep me secret as well. The whole thing really turned into kind of a nightmare for me with being nixed from premieres, not getting photos like I asked in a timely fashion. It was very sinister. In fact, I had a 10-city mall tour promoting the opening of Universal Florida, and the opening of Back to the Future Part 2 was going to be part of that. The plug got pulled on that. So it was pretty obvious after a while that I was being blacklisted. And I even had my boss come and say, "What did you do wrong on Murder, She Wrote?" And I was like, "What?"
Oh, yeah.
And the casting director there said they wanted a Laurel and Hardy because they wanted them for an episode, but not me specifically. And I was like, "Oh, dear God." Angela Lansbury had worked with them in her youth and thought it'd be fun to have them on a scene where her character goes to a movie studio. So it kind of turned my life around upside down. I had a lot of avoidance behavior, didn't know what to do. An actor finding out that they've been blacklisted is like death. So I eventually got over it and even left Hollywood and continued working in independents and TV shows and such when I could. And then got sort of discovered by the DeLorean owners and then the fan cons, and kind of revitalized my, interest and love of the films, and to kind of heal. So I started doing some events that Bob Gale was a part of, and I kind of always opened the door for him, leave it open if he wanted to chat or, explain his side or apologize or any of that. And he really never offered even a laurel. And I wanted to help Michael's cause. I put together a Back to the Future cruise to end Parkinson's to raise money for Michael for the 30th anniversary. And we got 6 of the cast members and crew members to go on this cruise. We raised, unfortunately, I didn't get the signups I wanted. We raised about $10,000. But during the process of that, after Bob Gale originally said, "I got no problem with you doing it," I needed to check him for licensing and such, at least approval. After him initially saying yes, he started backpedaling and then ghosting. What do you call it? Gaslighting. And then the blacklisting started again with big events. And I was like, okay, I see it's starting up again. So I just kind of try to keep an arm's distance away from Bob Gale. I love what he wrote and what he's created and the Bob's created and all. But unfortunately, they're not the most, how shall I say, gracious of people. But I'm happy to report that I get along fine with everyone else.
Yay!
Yay! Well, that's
Chris
good.
Lloyd is great, and Leah is great, and Tom is great. And, other cast and crew members do have problems, but they don't publicly talk about it. And I think it pisses Bob off that I talk about it because, it's kind of a healing thing for me. I need to.
So what you're saying is Bob Gale's probably not going to come and do our show now.
He may want to just to come try to gaslight me and correct things. He did it in a few books even.
Well, regardless of what happens, I mean, we there's I mean, it's really hard, especially in Hollywood, to have a happy ending like in the movies, pun intended.
Yeah, but I think they found out that I had pretty much sided with Crispin on the reuse of his likeness, and his attorney used things that I said to Crispin in the lawsuit. Spielberg came up to me while we were shooting and said, "So, Crispin, I see you got your $1 million after all." And I was like, "Oh, I see how much I'm saving you." Okay. And it was a real catty thing for Spielberg to do, and it pissed me off. So in sharing those stories, his attorney let out that they knew of these stories, and that's why it actually never went to court, because they saw, Universal saw they were going to lose, and Crispin got his $750,000. So now Crispin's out there saying that I'm a bad actor. So I'm like, oh geez, everyone's being shitty. Can we all just get together and heal from the pandemic and raise money for the Parkinson's Foundation? Get over it.
Can we all just get along?
Yeah. Ultimately, the fans love the films. They got made. Bob and Crispin should just come together for Michael's charity, and let's do some fan cons after all this is settled.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, whatever happens, happens, and we really appreciate you telling your side of the story. I mean, of all this that's happened, and regardless of what happened, I mean, as fans, we absolutely loved it. We absolutely loved the movies. We absolutely loved the performances, and if one key performance is definitely George McFly, so we definitely appreciate you telling us that side of the story.
Sure, I'm glad that I can tell it, because for years I was scared to death that the blacklisting would continue, and now that Bob's decided to continue it, I might as well tell it. So the hanging upside down, they had me on a track that went from outside the front door of the McFly 2015 home through the living room, through the sort of dining room area, into the kitchen, and it took. Well, I guess the better part of 2 weeks to get all those scenes. And while I was hanging upside down, one of the crew members came over and said, all this hanging upside down torture was meant for Crispin. I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. But
You could just feel the love in the air there, right?
And we had some extremely long days. As you may recall, Michael was doing the last season of Family Ties during the day, and then we'd have him at night and on the weekends. And I remember saying, Michael, when do you sleep? And he said, in the limo in between the studios. I was like, my God, no wonder he's exhausted all the time. So if I needed to be on set, say at 9 a.m, I'd have to be in the makeup chair by 4:30 in the morning, because it took for any of those makeups 4 hours to apply, another hour at the end of the day to take them off. And often we would have forced calls after shooting 19, 20, we had one day that was 26 hours long. Sometimes we'd have less than 8 hours turnaround to get back on in the makeup chair. So there were some pretty long days, and hanging upside down for most of those were pretty brutal. Though I think his name was Dan from Industrial Light and Magic, my handler, kind of for special effects. He built a little platform, a board on a ladder, so that they didn't have to get me down every time in between takes. So he would say, do a sit-up, do a sit-up, and he'd slide the ladder and the board underneath me, and I'd lie back on it while everyone would go off and have a cup of coffee, and I'd be still on set twiddling my thumbs.
You must have had great abs.
Yeah, short naps.
A little bit of that too. Well, we definitely we actually have a very fun. Obviously, we love you from Back to the Future, but each one of us actually has a very profound love for one of your other works here. This is where I'm going to put Anthony in the. We're going to leave Anthony for the end because we're not even ready for this. But I especially admire a lot. Obviously, like I said, I admire your Charlie Chaplin imitation, your imitation of Charlie Chaplin. But I also have to admire your Pee Wee Herman when you imitated Pee Wee Herman. La la la. Yes.
Oh no! I thought you were going to say like Screech's Guru on Saved by the Bell or something.
That's one of my personal favorites.
Nah, after I saw the porno with Screech, I'm done.
Oh jeez.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no! That's something I've never seen. Oh God!
I still taking therapy for that one, but that's another story. But yeah, definitely love the fact, and also I heard a little rumor. You tell me this is true. That you actually you're actually really good with languages.
Well, from working in the theme parks at Universal, I was just so blessed because Stan Laurel and Charlie Chaplin, both being from the UK, their films were sent to the empire where the sun never sets. They were popular in China and in India and Australia. So guests from around the world would see Laurel and Hardy or Charlie Chaplin and have to have a photo with us. So, and a lot of the time they were just delighted to see us representing their idols there. And I love people, and I always want to have a connection. So I would learn to greet in that. And at one time, I was up to 15 different languages that I could greet.
Wow.
That's
It
awesome.
wasn't necessarily conversational, but and I was starting to be able to tell Koreans from Indonesians or Malaysians and Japanese and mainland Chinese and so on and so forth. So I could, I could perceive the kind of stockier set Korean. I know I'm being stereotypical. Come up, I'd immediately go "Annyeonghaseyo," and they would like, "Oh, annyeonghaseyo, kamsahamnida." They would be thrilled that I'm greeting them, or Abu Kabar to a Malaysian because they have a little bit of a fairer look, or the Thai have even a fairer look. So I could say, Sawadee-kap. I would learn to recognize the cultural sort of shapes of their physicalness. Is that right? And then I could do it sometimes with Mideastern, from Israelis to even Tunisians and Arabs and Turkish folk. I was starting to get, oh, they're Greek, Yasu. I could start to see the difference, and I would say I was probably 75% of the time correct. The time,
75 is
the times
good.
that I was wrong, they were always quick to correct me, and no harm, no feelings were hurt.
Oh, that's good to know. Caitlin?
Well, I was doing some research before, today's interview, and I was looking at your IMDb page. And other than Back to the Future, my all-time love are the Beatles. And I saw that you did 2 Beatle-esque movies within the same year in 1978.
Yeah, when I got out of high school, my parents never wanted me to be an actor growing up. They ran these clubs and saw stars like Omar Sharif and Don Adams, and my dad was partners with Lauren Green in one club, and they didn't see any benefit. A lot of them complained and were drinking and swearing and playing cards and backgammon all day. So they really didn't want me to do that path in life, but I really wanted to, and I kept at it in school and community theater. And then when I was out of school, I really wanted to get on some film sets. So I joined one of these companies that would help supply extras to different shoots. And I think the first one I did was I Want to Hold Your Hand. That was like one of Zemeckis' first films. And as a Ringo fan, in the Burbank backlot, we were supposed to be outside of the Beatles hotel in the dead of winter in New York, and it was over 100 degrees.
Yes.
Oh, man.
We're all wrapped up. And these poor kids were dropping like flies because they weren't hydrating themselves. And I remember Zemeckis, I don't think was comfortable directing the crowd scene or anything, so he brought in his friend Spielberg to direct us. So that was kind of fun in a weird way. It was a lot of torture. But then I got the other one was I played actually 4 different roles in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, just little bit things. I played Strawberry Field's brother in the big hot air balloon scene.
Oh, my
Was in
God.
the Earth, Wind, and Fire, Got to Get You Into My Life crowd scene. What was the other one? And I guess the one you can actually see me is being brainwashed by Alice Cooper. Was he the Sun King? I forget what character Alice was.
No.
But I remember a couple days of shooting, and I did some dance moves in that. I could have been upgraded to a SAG contract or joined the union at that point, but I had to spend my money on my rent, I remember. But first couple of days with the 3 days of that shoot, I was really having a blast. I like first thing in the morning, it was 7:30 in the morning, had gotten through makeup, and I was like, who's smoking pot on the set? Someone's smoking pot. And I followed my nose. I'm 18 years old. I'm like, I recognize pot when I smell it. And I followed my nose to Barry Gibb.
That's amazing.
Wait, the Gibb smoke pot?
You're smoking, it's kind of early to be smoking pot. And he goes, well, you want some? And I was like, sure. And I was like, hey, there's tobacco in that. And he goes, oh, that's how we blend it. And then Robin, I remember coming over and saying, hey, is it Children of the World? I think was the album that had just come out, had just hit #1 on the Billboard chart. So I was lucky to be the first to congratulate them both. And it was kind of cool kind of rubbing elbows with the rock stars and then being on the sets. The sets were pretty outrageous and fun. And there was I remember a really beautiful blonde dancer that I was quite attracted to. And she was very friendly to me. But the second day we were having lunch together, she bought me a beer, even though it wasn't 21 yet. And the third day I remember coming up and seeing her and going up, hey, Cheryl, how you doing? And she goes, oh, Jeffrey, I want you to meet my husband, Alice. I was like, and they're still together.
That's
I
right.
think it's lovely. He's got very good taste.
Very good. Wow. Mr. Anthony?
So mine is a little bit. So I'm the baby of the group here. I'm only 27 years old. And one movie that I watched a lot as a child was Max Keeble's Big Move. And I found out you were McGoogles.
Yeah, I kind of split McGoogle with two other actors.
Really? Okay.
But they're the actor who, he's the principal who takes his head off and you recognize him. He did it for that one scene. And then I did a couple days, or, the example when McGoogle, I think, is it a dream sequence? And he races across the basketball court.
Yes.
And comes towards the camera. That's me.
Okay. I saw that because McGoogles gave me nightmares as a kid. And I found out that was you. I was like, oh, man, that's just horrific.
Happy to help.
Oh, thank you.
Jeffrey Weissman, guaranteed to give you nightmares.
I just needed some kind of work, and the agent at the time said, can you do bodysuit? I was like, sure. Even though I have claustrophobia, I still made it work.
Hey, work is work.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be in some great ensemble casts. The Back to the Future films had a brilliant ensemble cast. Zemeckis was very smart with his casting. You've probably read of all the different possibilities. They offered it to Ralph Macchio, who turned it down.
Yeah.
And, they wanted any number of different people. Johnny Depp had auditioned for George McFly, and anyway, and then I love the Chris Lloyd story of that. He passed on the role. You guys ever know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yeah, so they were looking at Jeff Goldblum or John Lithgow, and I worked with John on George Miller's segment of Twilight Zone movie.
That's right.
And that was another ensemble cast that was just a dream to be a part of, with Donna and Abby and JD and of course John, to work with, and unfortunately Alan Davio, our cinematographer, just passed away last week from COVID. He had been suffering already with his diabetes and such, and at the motion picture home, and then in isolation he got the virus and it took him.
So sad.
It is incredibly sad. He was a wonderful raconteur, knew everything about cinematography, and loved his wine. He was just a really fun guy.
Man has good taste.
I had the same kind of rapport with Dean Cundy, the cinematographer for Back to the Future. He's just a delightful man and loves humor and wine and is a great guy. So I've been very fortunate. Almost all the shoots that I get, if I have the ability to get close to the crew, I like to know the cameraman, because of course that's who's going to make you look good. And hopefully you got good communication with the director who allows you to speak with the camera operator or cinematographer. And it's always been a sort of reoccurring thing of mine to try to be a team player and help any production that I'm on elevate. So the story is, resonates authenticity and is good, is truthful.
Well, speaking of great performances, we do actually have to give you a shout out for your amazing cameo in
Project 88.
What, you think we didn't notice?
Do you guys know Kevin Bosch?
Yes, we do. Only recently with his video that went viral.
Yeah.
Right. The
Back to the Future ride video.
The ride, where he recreated the ride, is brilliant. So Kevin was a Floridian who moved to LA just a couple years ago, and Kevin and I have been friends for a number of years. He's an Uber fan, and he alerted me to Project 88, to Taylor's wonderful project. And I said, that's fantastic. He says, is there any way you could do something for it? I said, absolutely. What do you want? And he told me which scene he was doing and offered, me to reprise my background bit there as George backstage. And he got Harry to do the little bit with backstage with the guitar. So I was like, yes, this is great. And I got my wife to play Lorraine. And, we went through a lot of hoops trying to find the wardrobe here in quarantine to match. And then shoot in the corner of our living room is what you see.
So that's not the jacket from the original.
No, I didn't keep anything from the original film except maybe the photo. There was a picture on the mantle or somewhere of George, just a head portrait of George, and that's probably the only thing I have from the films, except some Polaroids, some continuity Polaroids. I sent you a copy of one of those, the side view of the young George makeup.
Yes,
which is
we love that.
I love it. Thank you.
The Crispin profile.
That's amazing. No, we it's actually really impressive how a lot of people manage to do these whole scenes of Back to the Future. I mean, if anyone out there has not seen Project 88, we highly recommend it. It's so much fun.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Not just because I'm in it, but it's so inspiring. I address a lot of filmmaking communities. I was on one last Saturday to 90 different filmmakers and participants in a 48-hour film festival. And I said, you guys, here's some inspiration. There's over 300 people from 9 different countries who had Back to the Future Part 2 broken up into 88 scenes, and each one was assigned a scene to do with your group or what have you. And from the ones who used their cats or the ones who used their children or the animated ones, I mean, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And they had less than a week or about a week to pull it off, no matter how they could, whether they were quarantined by themselves or they had some friends that they could still hang out with to pitch in. It really came out fantastic. And then Taylor did a masterful job editing it all together.
It's very impressive, and it's again, it's just one of those things that when you see it, you just kind of like, wow, I mean, the creativity. I mean, even in hard times like this, you can see people being as creative as ever, and it's just really impressive.
It's totally inspiring, and they're now talking about doing part 3.
That's it. We have to get in for part 3.
We're doing part 3. We're doing it.
Because I was disappointed that I didn't know about Project 88 until like a day or two before it was released. So I was really bummed that we couldn't participate. But if they're going to do a part 3, we got to be in that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, stay on top of it. Stay in touch with, if you haven't met Taylor, you should introduce yourself. He's the one who, of course, has the channel on YouTube, the Project 88 channel on YouTube, and also Back to the Future TOO.com. That's his page.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll definitely get in touch with him.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. Maybe I'll get a scene. I'll finally get, Bob Gale said, for all the makeup and the hanging upside down, all this trouble, we'll give you a part in part 3, without the makeup. And I'm still waiting for that, Bob.
We'll give you a part in our movie. How about that? We'll give you a part in our movie. You can play. Who can you play?
I don't know, but my wife is a prosthetic makeup artist, so we could turn you into anybody.
Oh, great! I don't really want to play wear the prosthetics again, but if I have to, I guess.
How about instead of playing that, what about whatever happened to the Mr. Fusion band?
It's still a possibility. I was going to start talking about makeup artists. We had incredible makeup folk on the shoot, but I digress. The Mr. Fusion, for those listening at home are going, what the? For that Back to the Future cruise that I put together back in 2015, I got Harry Waters Jr., who played Marvin Berry, to be our lead singer, and then Don Fullilove to be our bass player, Mark McClure, who played Dave McFly on drums, and then I play guitar, and then my buddy Dave Lewis from Ambrosia and Shadowfax on keyboards, who kind of played our musical director, and then my wife Kimball on vocals for Mr. Sandman and such. I put a band together for that fundraiser, and the 50 Back to the Future fans and another 50 or close to 100 Star Trek fans that were on the same cruise, we had our own Enchantment Under the Sea dance with our band as the main band for the event. and they really went nuts. It was really a very, very special night, and we played the songs from the movies. And I've had a number of offers of other fundraisers, but they never quite pull the trigger. It always seems to fall through, unfortunately. But I'm certain that we'll get another one. The last one was supposed to be We're Going Back, that Joe Walser and Michael Klastron were producing, but that fell apart because of many different reasons. But the band, I've been toying with trying to get the band back together for a Zoom concert for the fans around the world.
That would be amazing.
So it's just a little technically challenging. We got to rehearse and play music at the same time, and I'm seeing it done by symphonies, so we should be able to do it too. So I'm going to work on that. I'll get back to you.
See, Jeffrey, you got to do it the right way. You got to do it, man, we got to get the band back together. If that don't get them, nothing will.
That's right. We'll have to do some Blues Brothers tunes.
Yes! You're in the Mission from God. Oops, different movie. So what are you up to these days, Dan? We know that you're still doing your teaching career, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple projects in post, a couple projects that are doing the festival circuit. I mentored a young writer in his early 20s who pulled it together to shoot his own feature called The Eden Theory. And if you find on IMDb or elsewhere my demo reel, I have a little clip from that on my demo reel, but it's going to be doing the festival circuit, probably looking for distribution. And I have a very interesting part in that. I without giving it away, I can't really tell anything more. Then another project that is a short film that's kind of a parable rock musical fantasy thing called The Carnival of Wonders, in which I play the embodiment of death that's portrayed as a Swami kind of sideshow, circus sideshow mystic.
Oh, so it's a children's project.
Yes.
I'll get the kids back to sleep now.
So Christopher, the producer of it, was Madonna's choreographer for a lot of her big projects. And his school buddy, Jonathan Lawrence, directed it. And we literally developed my stuff, and it is used as sort of the thread that strings all these dance routines and story together. It's a very fun to watch piece and very compelling. So look for Carnival of Wonders. After it does the festival circuits, it just won a half dozen awards at a festival in LA. It just got accepted and to another one in Las Vegas. And it's getting out there. Yeah. And then I'm doing table reads, like I mentioned, for TV pilots and features. I'm teaching, just keeping myself busy. If anyone wants private coaching, jeffreyweissman.com, come to me, and I teach via Zoom.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
What do you enjoy more? Acting, teaching, acting, directing, writing, improv? What do you enjoy doing the most?
Yeah, right now I'm wrapping up my 6th week with a main film acting, which I also cover the business of acting course for the Actors Conference and the Bay Area Pro Act group. If you go to actorsconference.com, I believe, you can sign up for that last class. It's basically because I know people are worried sick about money. It's just a donation type of situation right now. I will probably do in the next session for improvisation. I, back in the early 80s, started doing improv. Actually, before that, at Renaissance fairs and such, I would do improv in the streets. But improv on stage, taking it seriously and really learning the nuts and bolts in the mid 80s, and then helped form Los Angeles Theater Sports. That your pal from Florida, Wayne Brady, came out and joined us and kept honing his chops, along with Brad Sherwood and Michael McShane and Greg Proops. A lot of the Whose Line Is It Anyway guys came out of our group. And that group, in fact, LA Theater Sports is still extant after 30 some odd years, as known as Impro Theater, doing 2.5 hour long improvised Anton Chekhov plays or Stephen Sondheim musicals or Shakespeare or Tennessee Williams. It's just amazing. So I have a lot of experience doing improv and teaching improv at university and different schools. So I'll probably be doing just that, trying to teach improv online.
Well, you were a fellow student from the Second City and Laugh Factory All-Star Improv Jam, so you definitely earned your chops.
I was just remarking that my one time going on at the Ash Grove at the Second City alumni show, I was working with Dan Castellaneta and Wayne Brady and Jane Norris and Paul Dooley, all these legends, and I'm on stage and I look down at the table right next to the stage, and there's Elaine May, who's one of the icons of improv from the late 50s and early 60s, and I nearly shit my pants. I mean, it was like, oh my God. But it was really great to be in that wonderful company. And yes, I'm very fortunate to have worked with some great talents. And even though I sometimes claim that I'm rusty, I get off my butt. Just a few months ago, went down and did my first 2-person improv show in San Francisco. And even though I was nervous as hell, it came off great and the audience loved it. So I was like, okay, I can still do this.
It's funny
That's
that
awesome.
after all these years, you still get nervous being on stage, huh?
Yeah, and the theory is, if you don't get nervous, it probably means you don't care enough.
That's true. That's a very good way to say it. Well, Jeffrey, we are super humble and so thankful for your time. Thank you so much for giving us those amazing stories. Yes, folks, we laughed, we cried. There was love, there was hate, there was everything, just like any other movie. But at the end of the day, it has a happy ending. And we just wanted to thank you so much for your time and everything.
Thank you so much. We are so blessed to have you with us. It really is an honor.
And the last...
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Tony. Stay quiet, Tony.
It's funny. I'm usually the one who runs his mouth the most, but I'm just sitting here in awe. Like, just listening to these stories, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to listen. This is fantastic.
It's very rewarding to just hear you. And the last question that we have for you is a question that it's just very curious about it. With all the remakes that are happening, what movie would you want it to be remade, and what role would you want to play?
Oh, great. Oh, lovely. Yes. Okay. I would love to play Iago in a remake of Othello.
There you go. All right. Shakespeare.
I was not expecting that.
Would you give a shout out to Brooke, or let me do it if she's going to hear this. Hey, Brooke, we miss you.
She'll love that.
Yeah, Brooke, we missed you. Jeffrey says hello, and that means you made it.
See you in the future.
What happened? We couldn't hear you.
I was shouting out to Brooke. I'll see you in the future.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much.
When this is all over, we'll see you out there at MegaCon or any of the. I think I'm actually scheduled for Pensacon next spring.
Okay.
Yes.
We've been in talks to try to get out there for sure. Because that's the one in February, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be in February. Hopefully,
well, if
things
it's
will
not
get back to normal by then.
It's not the end of the world. We'll be there.
Yeah, and just like, are we ever going to be able to do, snaps with our arms around our fans anymore? It's a whole new world.
Yeah. I'm getting a really cool Back to the Future mask made.
Yay!
I am. I can't wait for the fabric to get here.
Speak for yourself. I'm hanging out with my Stormtrooper mask. I go to Publix with my Stormtrooper mask, Jeffrey. It's awesome.
Yay! Did you by chance catch the Publix supermarket commercial I'm in?
I did. That's why I brought it up. Yes, sir. Just next time you guys go to Publix, to know that George McFly did a commercial for it.
Yeah, the Christmas, what was it called? Conspiracy. And if you look real close, the baby has the close up who supposedly ate our Christmas dinner. in the long shot, it's a completely different baby because the baby star had a meltdown. And the lead actress who plays my wife in it, luckily she had her baby in the wings who came to be in the long shot, saved that shoot. The magic of cinema.
The magic of cinema. I'm pretty sure we just broke a lot of people's hearts with that.
It was a really lovely commercial.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jeffrey, for your time.
Yes,
we
thank you so
appreciate
much.
it. And hopefully we'll see you soon in the con. And for all you fans out there, we just want to say, bye, Jeffrey.
Bye-bye. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Be compassionate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, that was freaking awesome.
I can't believe that just happened.
That was.
Dude, I need new underwear.
You know, when did we start this? Not even 2-3 months ago.
No, in February was when I messaged you guys.
Jeez, so in 2 months, we have now
amazing,
interviewed
man.
Jeffrey Weissman. Like, I never would have thought that we'd even get this sort of momentum, especially like this early on. It's incredible.
It's really cool. He was such a humble guy, so full of so many stories. I mean, it was kind of hard to interview because you just want to just keep talking.
I was quiet the whole time. Like, I'm just like, just tell me everything you want to tell me about these movies. Like, I'll just sit over here.
Right?
It was fantastic.
I mean, this is Jeffrey Weissman. I mean, imagine when we interview, I don't know, just he's just a random thought.
Yeah.
You know, Michael J. Fox on Ellen.
Oh, man.
I mean,
All right, I see what you're doing.
On Ellen.
I see what you're doing.
or imagine we interview Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd together at a con. I don't know. I mean, one of us is going to be really excited about that.
Yeah. No, Anthony's not excited unless we go to Ellen.
I'm sorry, but if anybody doesn't agree with me, then here we go. Unless you've made it to Ellen, you have not made it. If you end up on Ellen,
They'll
you've
invite
won.
us to the White House one day, and Anthony won't have it.
Hell no.
No, I want Ellen.
Hell no. Once I get invited to be on Ellen, like that's game over for me. I've won. Game over. And everyone retweet that. Let Ellen know. That's all I want to do. I want to be on her show. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if Ellen is listening to this show, first of all,
Ellen
okay.
would be really bored if she's listening to us.
It is quarantine.
It's quarantine, man.
If ever there's a chance for her to be hearing our voices right now, it's now.
All right, touche. So, Ellen, if you are listening to, and we know you are listening to this, please have us on your show.
Or just me. Like I'll be selfish on this one, guys.
Oh shit!
Man, what the hell?
Ladies and gentlemen, David Lee Roth here in our studio.
He did all right for himself too.
God.
Shoo-be-da-bop.
I hate all of you.
Wow.
Well, I thought Caitlin was the one we messed with. I didn't get an email. I didn't vote on this shit.
Caitlin is Sammy Hagar. At least she had the decency to be nicer about it. You just like, fuck you all. I'm out of here.
Van Hagar.
Oh my
Why
God.
can't this be love?
Okay, and we're done.
Okay, and we're done.
What, you said it was Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, whatever. They're not.
Oh man. But we had a
I'm just gonna
great
be
time this
Ringo
week.
and just hang out in the back.
You need to stop.
You guys do all the work. Let me collect my check. Where's my check? Ah, here we go.
You're getting paid.
Yes, I goddamn better be.
Wait,
Yellow
you guys are getting paid?
Submarine?
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
But again, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and allowing us some time with you. It was an absolute honor. We enjoyed every minute of speaking with you. And thank you all for listening. You know, continue to listen, share us all around, give us that 5-star rating.
Fan letters. Send those.
Signed memorabilia too. Yeah. Am I the only one opting for that here?
Yeah,
See,
you mooch.
I'm opting for it, but like I'm, quiet about it. If people want to
You're
give
never
us
going to get
stuff,
anywhere if you don't ask.
dude. Trust me.
Listen, nobody listen to David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. Let's listen to me. Please send those fan letters. We love reading those letters. It means a lot to us. And please also follow us on where?
Everywhere.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Your
YouTube,
mama's house.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Please
check out the YouTube.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really hope to get up to 1,000 subscribers so that we can do some fun live things eventually. So please, if you have a Gmail account and you don't even go on YouTube or whatever,
Just hit
the subscribe button for us.
And you know what? If you actually become our friends, we will say publicly and here in our podcast that we know you. That's a really good.
Promising people that.
I'm going to tell them. Like, let's say we just get John Smith. It's like, you know what, John Smith's pretty cool.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. He's all right.
Anyway, guys.
I think we're all on like a high from talking to Jeffrey Weissman.
Good time.
We're all crazy right now.
I honestly don't know how we're gonna top it, but I guess we'll find a way. Ellen. Was that the video with the gopher? Ellen. No, guys. But whether it be the future or the past, we will see you next time. Thank you so much, and we will see you again later.
Ellen.
Bye.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to What the Flux. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WhatTheFlux_pod. Please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. And be sure to recommend us to your other time-traveling friends.